Is it possible that the person closest to you is a traitor? It can't be. It can't be. It mustn't be. Martina looked out the window with tears running down her cheeks. 6 months had passed since the day her mother took her to the institution, and she naively waited for her mother, who promised to pick her up in a couple of days. But time passed and her mother didn't come. Maybe something had happened to her, and that's why she didn't come. The girl was looking for excuses. The girls who shared the room with Martina immediately said that Mum would not come back because it is an orphanage, and they do not bring her back for a couple of days. But Martina believed and waited and believed. She waited after a year, then 3, until the last day she left the orphanage. Martina hoped that her mother would come back for her. Only when she left the orphanage did she learn that she was in another city, 150 kilometers from where she lived. Now everything was clear to her. Her mother was not coming back for her. She had simply left her. And the realization of that hurt. Only one question worried the girl. Why? She had been quiet, calm, and obedient. Why had her mother left her in a strange place? What could a girl do? Did she have her own flat? Did her mother work and earn good money? Have they always had enough? Why? Martina really wanted to find her mother and ask her that question, and so she decided to do things differently. First, she would get an education, get a good job, and come to her mother with the image of a successful and educated professional. She would feel ashamed and hurt, just as a girl who was betrayed by the person closest to her felt hurt. Martina was an intelligent girl. She did well in her studies, and many teachers had predicted a bright and successful future for her. She was able to prepare for the entrance exams and enroll in one of the best universities in the city. She also dreamed of becoming a designer and did everything she could to get a good education. After graduation, Martina was invited to a renowned design company where she did her internship, and life took a completely different direction. Martina had interesting projects that she successfully completed. She didn't have many friends. She made friends with a girl from work named Purita, but she was more of a friend than a girlfriend. However, there was one close person in Martina's life, Florencio. They met when they were still in the orphanage. Martina was 11 years old, and Florencio was 13. They had arrived at the orphanage at an age when it is more difficult to get used to the environment of other people. One day, the older children surrounded Florencio, who remained distant and did not want to talk to anyone. Martina saw this image and went to help an unknown boy. "Why am I 5 against 1? What has he done to you?" the girl declared threateningly and bravely. "Get out of here, brat." The older children reacted immediately, but Martina was not scared and responded calmly. "If you don't get away from him, I'll call Carlos Rios." The kids turned around and ran away. Carlos Rios was the gym teacher at the orphanage, strict and fair. He never let the younger ones get hurt, and everyone knew it. That's why they were so afraid of Martina's words. Martina approached Florencio. "Hello, are you okay? Have they hurt you?" the girl asked affectionately. "No, thank you." She extended her hand. "My name is Florencio." "And I'm Martina. You're new here, right?" "Yes, a week ago. I don't want to stay here. My grandmother will pick me up soon." "Are you sure?" Martina asked incredulously. "You know, adults' promises aren't always kept. I live with my grandmother, but she was hospitalized and they put me here. As soon as she recovers, she will take me immediately." "Oh, good," said the girl with a touch of envy. "My mother promised to take me too, but I have been waiting for her for 4 years and she has not come. Maybe something has happened to her, and she has not been able to come," Florencio said in a mature and sensible way. "I don't know. Better that than her leaving me." Martina sighed. "I will find her when I am older and ask her. I don't even remember my mother. She and my father died in a car accident when I was 2. My grandmother took me in. We don't have anyone else. It's a shame, of course. I never had a dad either, My mother and I lived alone. Then Gustavo came along, and my mother spent all her time with him. But I'm not resentful. I don't care that he ignores me 100 times. I just want to live in my house. Martina had tears in her eyes. I can't stay here. It disgusts me. I'm not going to stay here, Florencio suggested. It would be more fun together. Come on, Martina said happily. And from that day on, they really were always together, except during classes and bedtime. Florencio had learned to protect himself and his girlfriend because many people were jealous of their friendship and tried to scold her in every way possible. But they defended their relationship, even though sometimes it was hard. Florencio fought with the boys over Martina. Martina fought with the girls, but finally, they were alone. Carlos Rios intervened. The difficulties began when Florencio entered university and left the walls of the orphanage. His grandmother never came back for him because she died in the hospital. The teenager took it very badly, and if it hadn't been for Martina, no one knows how he would have dealt with the situation. The 2 years that Martina ruled the orphanage without Florencio were probably the most difficult. She did not want to communicate with anyone. She kept to herself and waited impatiently for him to come and visit her. Florencio could only visit Martina on weekends, so the girl lived from Saturday to Saturday. But when she came of age, she left the walls of the orphanage. Luckily, Martina's apartment was next to Florencio's, and they saw each other almost every day. In the first period, Martina had a hard time adjusting to her new life alone. Florencio helped and supported her. Then came university and a new, interesting job. But Martina found time for her friend, despite her busy schedule. She even took on the responsibility of cooking for him. Florencio worked in a construction company as he was an architect. This was so surprising that even in the choice of profession, the young people were close. Today, Martina celebrates her 25th birthday. In the evening, she and Florencio go to their favorite restaurant. Thank goodness it's a day off. You can sleep in and take the time to get ready for dinner, Martina thought as she lay down on the bed. She was in a very good mood, and even though she didn't really like her birthday, today she somehow felt especially happy. The phone rang. "Hello, Martina Castro," said a strange female voice. "Hello," Martina answered calmly. She wasn't afraid of calls from unknown numbers because she can receive a call from a client whenever she wants. The Aphrodita Beauty Salon would like to wish you a happy anniversary and invite you to their treatments. We are giving you a subscription for 1 month. You can use the services of our salon during this period completely free of charge, regardless of the service selected. Wow, thank you very much. I didn't know they had this option, said Martina, impressed. She has been a regular customer for 2 years, and she has never heard of anything like it. This option is only available to our VIP clients, which is you. We look forward to seeing you at your convenience. Listen, super present. Can I come in today? I need a manicure and a haircut, she said after a moment, and makeup for the evening. Yes, of course. What time is good? 3 o'clock. Great. See you at 3. Have a nice day. What a present. What a great way to start the day, Martina thought happily. And then the congratulatory calls from colleagues started pouring in. Martina couldn't get to the bathroom to wash her face and shower. The phone had not stopped ringing. Purita called to wish her a happy birthday. Martina was pleasantly surprised by this attention. The last straw was the call from the general manager. Martina, my sincere congratulations on your anniversary. I wish you health, inexhaustible energy, creative success, creative solutions, and great feminine happiness. Since you are one of the best employees in our company, the management, in my person, has decided to reward you for your excellent work by celebrating your anniversary and awarding you a 1-week sea trip. The excursion is for 2 people, so you can take someone with you that you don't want to be separated from for a long time, the director said cryptically. Thank you very much. I have no words, but I have a vacation in 3 months. Oh, come on, it's nothing. I give you permission to take a week's leave now. Your flight leaves in 3 days. You can do it. Have a good night." Martina thanked the general manager once again and logged out. What a celebration! She had never had a birthday like this. Martina had already entered the bathroom when suddenly the doorbell rang. "If there are any more surprises, I'm going to faint from happiness," she smiled. She put on her robe and went to open the door. The delivery man stood in the doorway with a huge bouquet of roses. "Martina Castro?" he asked pleasantly. "Yes, it's me. Flowers for you. Please sign here." Martina signed the receipt and took the bouquet. The 25 roses, with their delicate, creamy scent, gave off a pleasant fragrance. In the center of the bouquet was a small card. Martina took it out and read it. "Martina, from your dear little man. Happy holidays to you. See you tonight." Of course, who else would send me flowers? Only Florencio. Of course, who else would send me flowers? Only Florencio, Martina said with a smile. She put the roses in a vase and went to the bathroom. After taking a shower and drinking coffee, Martina decided to choose an outfit for the evening. She moved one coat rack after another, but she didn't like any of them. And the orphanage had 2 dresses and 1 skirt for the whole year. Martina smiled. It was easier to choose. Then we should get something interesting, since today was going to be such an unusual birthday party. Martina got dressed, called a taxi, and went shopping. Then she visited a beauty salon, got a manicure, her hair done, and her makeup done. All that was missing was a change of clothes, and they could go out to celebrate. They had met Florencio at a restaurant. Martina knew her childhood friend well and understood that Florencio was probably preparing a surprise for her. But Martina could not even imagine what kind, despite her creative imagination. She also took a taxi to the restaurant. She did not know how to drive and did not yet have her own car. When she arrived at the restaurant, Martina saw a black limousine. Someone was probably having a party tonight too. Oh, I wouldn't mind going on one, Martina thought dreamily. She paid the taxi fare and walked confidently into the restaurant. All the tables were covered with flowers. Balloons of all colors with the words, "Happy Birthday," hung from the ceiling of the restaurant. Martina looked at this beauty with envy. Once as a child, she had also dreamed of such a party. Oh, how lucky someone is today. It's a big celebration. I should have chosen another restaurant. It was inconvenient to disturb people. She didn't think about it because Florencio, in a dark blue suit and carrying a huge bouquet of flowers, appeared out of nowhere. "My dear Marty," he began solemnly in a loud voice. "Shh! Why so loud?" Martina tried to calm Florencio down. "Happy birthday!" Ignoring the comment, Florencio continued. "I wish you true happiness, lots of love, prosperity, and that your greatest wishes come true. One of them I have already fulfilled. It's all for you." He spread his hands to indicate that the restaurant belongs to Martina. "I remember your childhood dream about balloons, and now it has come true. I'm sorry. I couldn't do it before. I didn't have the financial means, but now I can do a lot." Tears were falling down her cheeks. Martina couldn't control her emotions. "Florencio, did you do this for me?" Martina asked, holding back her tears. "Of course it was for you. You are the closest person to me." "Thank you, dear. It's the best gift of all." Martina hugged Florencio and suddenly gave him a kiss on the cheek. "No, it's not a gift yet. It's just a decoration for the living room. Let's sit down for now. The present will come a little later." "Will there be a present too?" Martina was surprised. "I'm already quite happy." A waiter came over and poured champagne into glasses. "To you, dear birthday girl. To you, my Florencio. You are a true friend." When they had drunk the champagne and sat down at the table, Florencio made a stealthy gesture to the waiter and came back up. He held in his hands a medium-sized box, wrapped in festive wrapping with a bow. Florencio took the box and handed it to Martina. "This is your present. Please open it now." Martina unpacked the gift with excitement, like a child. One layer of paper was replaced by another. She couldn't wait to get to the present itself. Finally, she could see the oblong box in which chains and bracelets were usually presented. She looked at Florencio and smiled. In it was a beautiful gold bracelet and a ring. Martina looked at Florencio in surprise. It didn't look like the usual costume jewelry. The girl wanted to ask something, but Florencio was quick to react. "Marty, my dear, there is no one closer and dearer to me than you. You are the best person in the world. Will you marry me?" Thank goodness Martina was still sitting, or she would have fallen over in surprise. "Florencio, do you really want this?" "I really do." "And you?" "Me too." "Is that a yes?" "Yes." "Hooray!" She said, "Yes." Florencio shouted to the entire restaurant, and immediately the restaurant staff burst into applause. Florencio picked Martina up in his arms and spun her around the room. They turned on the music and the children started dancing. Martina was happy. She had always loved Florencio, and if in the past she had thought it was sisterly love, every year she realized she was wrong, but she was afraid to tell him. Florencio didn't show the kind of attention that boys usually show to girls. That's why Martina was sure they were just friends, and she didn't want to spoil it with her confusion. The paradox was that Florencio thought exactly the same. He felt that Martina treated him like one of her friends, and for fear of losing even that closeness of friendship, he hid his feelings. That was what they were talking about now, sitting around the table and laughing heartily at their indecision and stupidity. "How much time have we wasted?" Florencio said sadly. "Yes, and all because you have to talk," Martina smiled. "Let's not hide anything again, okay? Let's go." After dinner, when the couple left the restaurant, the black limousine pulled up at the entrance. "Is that what we're dealing with? Did you ask for that?" Martina was surprised for the umpteenth time that day. Of course she was. Florencio put his arm around her waist and led her to the car. They drove through the city for about 2 hours and then headed to Martina's house. Ahead of them lay the first and truest night of love that they had both secretly dreamed of for a long time. 3 days later, they set off for the sea. They spent the whole week walking and enjoying each other. It was as if they had just met. The week had passed unnoticed. On their return home the next day, they registered their marriage. The wedding day was September 9th, the day they had met at the orphanage. Martina was happy, probably for the first time in her life and for the first time as a woman. She was preparing for this important event in her life. They had very few guests, some people from Martina and Florencio's work, Martina's neighbor and her husband, and Carlos Rios, the only person from the orphanage they had kept in touch with so far. The wedding was held at their favorite restaurant. The event, although not a large number, was fun and plentiful. After the wedding, Martina went to live with Florencio. The newlyweds decided not to go on their honeymoon yet, but to postpone the trip until next year. Family life was peaceful, without fights or scandals, and with full understanding that sometimes Martina thought it didn't work like that everything was too good, that they had nothing to argue about, that they knew each other so well. So a year passed. They rented Martina's flat, and at the same time saved money from their salaries. They had a dream of opening their own design office to develop projects from scratch, so they took a risk. Florencio took care of the calculations and designs of the houses from the foundation to the roof, while Martina developed the design projects inside the house. At first, it was difficult. The lack of clients was terrifying. But the guys waited patiently, and they did it. A very important man asked them to renovate his parents' country house. The couple got to work, and a week later their project was approved. Suddenly, Florencio had an epiphany. "Look, Marty, we can do our own projects. We have to find a construction company to collaborate with us and go ahead. Do you think so? It's a great idea. Let's try it. While they were looking for qualified builders, word of mouth was already spreading around town about the talented young people working in future design. Florencio managed to find 2 teams of versatile builders who were willing to work together on a permanent basis, and things started to happen. They designed projects and then executed them themselves. Within 6 years, his office had become a fairly good construction company with its own office of architects and designers. The husband and wife were happy. The only thing that had bothered Martina lately was that she had not been able to get pregnant. Florencio consoled his wife by telling her that she still had a long way to go, that her age would allow them to spend a few more years developing their business, and that then she could retire and take care of the birth and raising of their children. Martina agreed with her husband, but she really wanted to have a baby in the family as soon as possible. They even gave her a full checkup to make sure there was nothing wrong with her. The doctor reassured her and told her that she could have children and that she just had to wait, everything in its own time. Another year passed, but the situation did not change, and Martina began to worry and urged Florencio to get a checkup too. "Honey, please, for my sake and my peace of mind, get tested." "Marty, but this is nonsense. That's all. We can have children. We can. It's just that the time is not right. Is it easy for you?" She got offended at her husband. "It's not difficult for me. I don't understand why you have to make it worse. The doctor told you, all in good time." "Well, he told me, but you haven't. You haven't had the test. Okay, we're going to go to your doctor on Wednesday and get whatever you want." Martina approached her husband and put her arm around his shoulders. "Thank you. It's very important to me." "Okay, it's decided. You'd better tell me something. Where are we going to celebrate your birthday?" "I don't know. I don't really feel like it, to be honest." "What do you mean?" Florencio was surprised. "Can't we go somewhere for a couple of days, rest a bit, get a change of scenery?" "I think I'm tired." "No wonder. We've been working a lot lately." Florencio agreed. "I'm tired too, to be honest. Let's celebrate your birthday and go on a trip for a week. It's something we've wanted to do for a long time. What do you think?" "I'd love to." Martina agreed immediately. The birthday was just a few days away, but neither Martina nor Florencio had any idea what was going to happen on the eve of the party. After work, Martina had to stop by the salon to pick up a dress she had pre-selected and ordered from a catalogue. Florencio convinced Martina to invite the work team to a restaurant and relax, especially since it was her birthday. Martina was very well liked in the company. She was kind, attentive, and fair, so the company was called Nuestra Mamá Martí. Martina walked into Florencio's office. "Are you taking long? I have to pick up my dress." "Honey, 5 minutes and we're off. I know about the dress. Then I'll meet you at the car. Okay? Then I'll meet you at the car. Okay?" Martina went down to the parking lot. She was in a very good mood. Florencio's tests were fine and he could have children too. They had even checked their compatibility, which was very high. "We just have to wait a little longer." Martina calmed down. She looked around and waited patiently for her husband. It had been about 15 minutes and he still hadn't arrived. Florencio had that problem. He didn't know how to plan and manage his time clearly, and he was often late. Not by long, but by 5 or 10 minutes constantly. Even when he made appointments for work meetings, he wrote the time in his diary half an hour before so he wouldn't be late. "Will you ever learn to be punctual?" Martina smiled as she watched her husband walking by. "It's a handicap. I can't help it." "I hope that's not a criticism. You're not going to leave me for that, are you?" He joked and hugged and kissed his wife. "Nonsense. Why should I leave you? Come on, let's go, or we'll be late for your salon." They arrived at the salon on time. Martina tried on the dress and was very satisfied. The chosen model perfectly highlighted all the advantages of her figure, and although she had put on a few extra pounds, the well-chosen style of the dress concealed it perfectly. Felice got into the car and put the bag with the dress on the back seat. "Let's go out to dinner," Florencio suggested. "Come on, I don't feel like cooking tonight," Martina agreed. "You've read my mind. Where do you want to go?" "Let's go to an Italian pizzeria. I'd love a pizza." "I could easily make it," Florencio said, and walked away from the store. On the way, they talked about places they would like to go. Florencio had once been to a small northern town with beautiful nature. She knew a little about the sights in the area. Martina, on the other hand, had only dreamed of visiting this magnificent region for the time being. "You can't imagine how beautiful it is," Florencio said. "You're going to love it. I've been trying to convince you to go for a long time, but you've refused." "I refused because I had a lot of work, and now we can afford this trip, both in terms of time and money. I can't wait for this trip. It's going to be very—" He didn't finish. A bright light and a loud bang interrupted his words. Florencio didn't even realize what had happened. He opened his eyes. There were hospital walls all around. A man of about 45 with a leg in a cast was lying on the bed next to him. "Excuse me, where are we?" He barely made a sound. "Oh, you're awake!" A fellow ward member smiled. "We're in a hospital, bro. In the hospital. And my wife. I don't know anything about my wife. Don't be nervous. The doctor will tell you everything." He reached up and pressed the button for the staff. Within a minute, a nurse ran into the room. When she saw that Florencio had regained consciousness, she ran out of the room shouting, "He's awake! Call Dr. Valverde!" A few minutes later, the doctor entered the room and leaned over to Florencio. "Do you remember your name?" he asked loudly. "Of course, Florencio. And don't shout like that, please. I have a terrible headache." "Do you remember his last name?" "Doctor, I'm not an idiot. Of course I remember it. Santoro is my last name. Tell me, where is my wife? What's wrong with her? What happened? I don't remember." "You see, you say you remember everything. You had an accident. Your wife is in the next room. She's alive, don't worry." Florencio breathed a sigh of relief, but he didn't like the look on the doctor's face. "She's alive, but what's wrong with her? Her injury is more serious than yours. The impact was on her side. Can you explain it? Will she live?" She will. Don't worry. It's just that the treatment will be long. Well, thank God. Everything is fine then. You just get better. I won't let you get up today, but you can visit your wife tomorrow. Wait, what's the date today? April 20th. It's her birthday, doctor. Please let me see her for a moment. The doctor lowered his eyes and turned away. Is something wrong? She's still unconscious. There's no point in you visiting her, I'm sorry. Yes, there is. You don't understand. She needs me now more than ever. He will hear my voice and wake up. We have been together since the orphanage. We have no one but each other. Please, allow me. Florencio almost shouted in desperation. The heart of the nurse standing next to the doctor softened. Gustavo Valverde, can I take you in the wheelchair? No more than 5 minutes, I promise, in case she hears you and wakes up. Okay, I don't want to be an animal, but only for 5 minutes, the doctor said sternly and walked away. Florencio looked gratefully at the nurse. Thank you so much for your support. You're welcome. Your spouse is lucky to have a husband. Not everyone is so torn apart. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I've seen a lot in my years here. I love her very much. I can see that, the nurse smiled. Rest for now. I'll come get you in half an hour. I'll be waiting. Florencio looked at his neighbor and then out the window and thought, what an irony. My parents died in an accident and I had an accident. But at least I'm still alive, and most importantly, Marty is alive. When the nurse arrived, Florencio was already sitting on the edge of the bed. Are you fast? He asked himself. By the way, you have a concussion, not serious, but there is one, and a knee injury. Only after these words did Florencio notice his leg, which was heavily bandaged. They must have injected me with a lot of painkillers, and I don't feel anything. He thought and said out loud, "Let's go to Martina's now." He got into the wheelchair and they left the room. Martina's room was one door away from his. He opened the doors and wheeled the stroller into the room. Martina was the only person there. They walked closer, and Florencio could see his wife. A huge bruise on his cheek and shoulder, his arm in a cast, tubes sticking out of his mouth. A gruesome sight, especially if you look at someone close to her. "Tell me, Maria, what's wrong with him?" I had already read the nurse's name on his tag. "What you see is nothing. He'll heal in a couple of weeks. His wife has a spinal injury. The doctors are deciding what to do for now. The most important thing is that he recovers. That's the most important thing now. What Florencio heard made him sick." "What do you mean by a spinal injury? Why didn't the doctor say anything like that? And what does all that mean? Is Martina an invalid now? Tell me, can she be helped? Or will she be an invalid?" Florencio asked hopefully, but he didn't hear what he wanted to hear. No one can tell him yet. The MRI will be repeated today. Our chief neurosurgeon is coming. He's coming, even though he's on vacation. He will be the one to make the final diagnosis and take care of your wife's treatment. But she will probably need several operations on her spine. That's all I can tell you. She paused, then continued. You'll have to be patient. It will take a long time for her to recover. I understand. Thank you for your frankness. The main thing is that she is alive, and we will take care of the rest. God willing, Maria said quietly. I'll leave you for 5 minutes, and then I'll take you back. Don't move without me. Very well. Thank you again. Maria left, and Florencio sat in the chair next to Martina and tried to figure out what to do now and what would happen next. He took his wife's hand and began to talk to her. Marty, dear, happy birthday. Today is such a day. You must wake up, you must. I love you very much, and I cannot live without you. You know that well. We will get over it. Wake up and tell me that you love me. Everything else will be fine. He stopped talking and looked up. Suddenly he felt Martina squeeze his fingers. It was at that moment that Maria came in. Maria, she squeezed my hand, Florencio said excitedly. Are you sure? The nurse wondered. Maybe you imagined it because you want it so much. At that moment they both heard a quiet noise made by Martina. Maria quickly left the room. A minute later, there were already 3 doctors and 2 nurses in the room. Florencio was taken to his room and asked to wait patiently. It was the longest half-hour of his life. The man felt his heart beating so loudly that it could be heard even in the hallway. Gustavo Valverde came in. You were right, Florencio. Your presence has worked. Martina has regained consciousness. The doctor saw that Florencio wanted to ask something, but he raised his hand and stopped him. Wait. With the questions, let me go first. Your wife has a serious spinal injury. We will take her to an MRI in a couple of hours. Our neurosurgeon will be there, and we will decide what to do next. But I can tell you frankly that it is a very complicated situation. The doctor remained silent, and Florencio tried to overcome his excitement to ask the main question. Tell me honestly, will you walk? I don't know. That much I am sincere about. Let's wait for the results of all the tests, and then I will tell you what to prepare for. He sat on the edge of the bed and looked attentively at Florencio. Now answer honestly. Do you love your wife? Are you willing to fight for her and with her? This is a very important point. I love my wife, and I will be with her no matter what verdict she comes up with. Florencio said confidently, I believe you. Your wife is lucky. Gustavo Valverde patted Florencio on the shoulder. Hang on, it won't be easy. The doctor left, and Florencio was left alone with his thoughts. Difficulties had never frightened this young man, but now he didn't fear them. He was afraid of losing the person he loved the most. This fear cramped his whole body. He came, and at one point Florencio thought he was suffocating. Never in his life had he been so scared as now. I have to control myself. I can't let Marty see me like this. He'll find out right away. On the contrary, I have to pull myself together and show her that I believe in her, that I think she can handle it, because I'll always be there for her. We have to calm down. The neurosurgeon's report may not be as bad as they say, but the reality turned out to be more terrifying than Florencio's fantasies. At night, Maria came into the room. The expression on her face was very tense. She stood by the door and looked at Florencio. "Speak, for God's sake, don't keep quiet." "Is it even worse?" "I have bad news. His wife is paralyzed in her lower limbs. Her spinal cord is severed. The nerve endings are pinched in 6 places. She's going to need major surgery, but there are no guarantees." He stopped talking and hung his head. "There's a good chance his wife will never walk again." "I'm sorry." If they had hit her on the head with something heavy now, the effect would have been less than what he had heard. Tears welled up in Florencio's eyes that he himself hadn't expected. The last time he had cried in the orphanage was when he had another fight over Martina, but now it hurt so much that he couldn't stop crying. Florencio felt like a wounded animal, cornered. The next day, he was allowed to visit Martina. He tuned in and gathered his thoughts to somehow cheer up his wife, but nothing worked. Martina could always read Florencio's mood in his eyes and facial expressions. They were a clear indication of his condition, but he couldn't refuse to go with her. The nurse took Florencio to his room and left them alone. Martina looked at her husband with tear-filled eyes. She already knew everything. "Hello, Marty," Florencio began, and then he hesitated. He didn't really know what he should or shouldn't say or ask. "Hello," Martina said quietly and turned around. He walked over to the bed and took his wife's hand. "Hey, what are you doing? We're together." "Hey, what are you doing? We're together. We'll get by." He tried to reassure her, but she didn't really believe it either. "Do you really think you can bear it?" Martina asked, looking at her husband questioningly. "Of course," Florencio replied, almost certainly. "I heard a saying a long time ago. If you want to live, medicine has no power. You want to live, right? You're not going to leave me, are you?" Martina smiled sadly and turned away again. "You know, it would be right for you to divorce me. I don't want to torture you. I don't want you to see how bad I feel. I don't want anything at all." "Marty, you're talking complete nonsense. I'm not going to divorce you. That's not even up for discussion. That's one. Number two, we have enough money to make your life comfortable, even if—" She hesitated, not knowing how informed Martina was about her condition and immediate prospects. "Well, in case you have to be in a wheelchair for a while." "For a while?" Martina suddenly gets angry. "For a while? I'm going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, and don't pretend you haven't been told that. You know damn well I hate it when you pity me. I don't need your pity or sympathy. I need your love, but you can't love a cripple completely, and don't try to convince me otherwise." Florencio even took offense. "Are you telling me that if I were you, you would leave me and divorce me?" Martina turned around and looked pointedly at her husband. "Of course not." "Then why do you think I'm such a bastard?" She thought for a moment. "Because it's different with men." That was the only thing Martina could think of. "Who told you such nonsense? Do you mean that men cannot truly love, can't court and care? Are all men traitors?" Florencio was angry. "That's not what I meant. It's just that men have certain needs and are rarely faithful to one woman for long. So let's not speak for all men. It's understandable that it's not the same and that we'll try something else. And the baby? There's surrogacy. There's adoption. It's also an option. So you're willing to stay with me despite my problems?" Martina had tears in her eyes. "Of course that's nonsense. I don't understand how you can think I would betray you. And remember that together, we can do it." A week later, Martina had her first operation. The results were not what the doctors had anticipated. They decided to do another one in 15 days, and then another. In 1 year, Martina had 6 operations. The results were: she regained feeling in her legs and was able to move them a little, but there was no full recovery and no prognosis for it. During Martina's last checkup with the neurosurgeon, they found a tumor on her spine, and that was the last straw. "I don't want any more surgeries. I've been living in the hospital for over a year. I'm fed up. I want to go home. But we have to examine and find out what kind of tumor it is," the doctor objected. "Do you hear me? I don't want anything else. I want to go home. Apparently a higher power has decided that it's time for me to go there. So I have one problem after another. This is how it has to be. That's it. This conversation is over," Martina summed up. She called Florencio. "Florencio, please take me home." "Home? Have you finished your exam?" "Yes, I want to go home." "Sure, I'll be there in an hour." While Martina was in the hospital, Florencio had built a house and furnished it so that Martina would be as comfortable as possible. Martina knew nothing about it. It was a surprise. So when Florencio picked up his wife and drove her to another address, she was very surprised. "Honey, where are we going?" "Home, of course. Is it just me, or are you going the wrong way?" "Marty, can you be patient?" Florencio smiled. "Where from?" "I've never done it, you know," Martina replied, smiling. Over the past year, she had calmed down a bit and gotten used to her new position. She was almost the same Martina as always, except she couldn't walk. Sometimes she moved around with the help of a walker, but not much. Her legs got tired very quickly. They approached the gate, which began to open automatically. Martina looked at her husband in surprise, but said nothing. The car entered the yard. The yard was large, with grass and a small garden. There was a swimming pool in the distance and a gazebo not far from it. The house itself was 1 story, but large. Florencio helped his wife out of the car. He put her in the stroller and took her to see their new house. "Look, here we have a large living room. Here is the kitchen. There is a toilet and a bathroom next to it," Florencio said. "This is our bedroom, next to the guest room." "And what about this door?" Martina pointed towards it. "This is your office. I thought you would want to continue your work. You will be comfortable there. The study was indeed created for you." She smiled. "You are very good. Thank you very much." "Yes, I definitely want to work." They left the office. "What is there?" "There is the maid's room." Florencio noticed Martina's look of disgust. "Wait, don't be angry and don't be nervous. She'll be an au pair. You're going to work, aren't you? When you have a house to manage, and like any working person, you'll be tired. That's why I've decided that we'll have an au pair. I don't see what the problem is." "Okay, but can I choose her myself?" "Well, you could, but I've already found a woman. You can talk to her first." "Okay," Martina agreed reluctantly. "How old is she?" 52. "Are you jealous?" Florencio laughed. "You know, things can happen in life. I don't need a pretty girl." Martina snorted. Martina didn't know that Florencio hadn't just chosen an au pair. He had found a woman with a medical background who had experience in caring for the disabled, and he had strictly forbidden Blanca, the au pair's name, from mentioning that she was a doctor. Life was flowing in a good direction. Florencio drove to the office, Martina worked at home, and Blanca took care of all the household chores. Martina liked Blanca. The woman was simple, kind, and very pleasant to talk to. Sometimes they could spend hours chatting in the living room over a cup of tea. Martina told Blanca about her life since she came to the orphanage. "But you remembered your mother. Did you ever want to find her and find out why she did what she did?" Blanca asked. "I wanted to. I really did. And then I changed my mind abruptly. Why? What would I tell her? That I've hated her all my life? That she's a traitor and you can't do that to children? What's the point?" My life isn't going to go backwards or change. Well, yes. I know what you mean. I probably wouldn't want her to be in your place either. Let that be on her conscience, you know? Martin, I'm not a very religious person, but for some reason I think there's something out there. A higher court or something. And everyone will get what they deserve. So day after day went by. 6 months had passed since Martina returned to her new home. One morning she woke up and felt very ill. Martina called Blanca. Should we call a doctor? Blanca suggested. What would be the point? They've already done everything possible. Marti, I'm sorry, but shouldn't you have had your tumor examined? Maybe it's benign and they could have removed it. Blanca, I'm tired of surgeries. The procedures, the rehabilitation. I want to live at home for as long as I have left. I understand that. She said with white sadness that she had seen condemned people more than once in her life. After a week, Martina's arms began to fail and her legs finally stopped working. Martina became despondent. She stayed in her room all day, refused to eat and stopped working. Florencio could not bear to see his wife suffer and began to stay late at work more and more often. He attributed it to a backlog of business, but Martina was not stupid and knew perfectly well the real reason. Blanca looked at the young woman with pain. She knew she had to fight, but Martina had obviously let go of her hands and wasn't even trying to do anything. Any attempt to get Martina to talk or just communicate was going nowhere. One day, Blanca was returning from shopping. She took a taxi to the house and saw a man in his 60s at the door. He was trying to look behind the fence. Blanca became wary. This is the town of the fancy country houses, and strangers don't hang around here. So she looked sternly at the man and asked, "What do you want?" "Excuse me. Do you live here?" "I work here." "Who do you want?" "I'm looking for Martina Castro." "Does she live here?" Blanca was surprised. She knew that was the landlady's maiden name. Martina Santoro, maiden name, Castro, lives here. "Why do you want her?" "Excuse me, how long have you worked here?" "Can we talk?" "I won't take a minute to tell you. I have no bad intentions." Blanca looked the man over from head to toe. He was an intelligent-looking man and less of a dangerous man. Intuitively, Blanca decided that he could be trusted, at least to listen to her. "Very well, let's go in. The owner is resting anyway and won't be coming out." "Is Martina sick?" "You didn't know?" "No." "Very well, we'll talk inside." They entered the kitchen. The man waited patiently for Blanca to put away the food and remained silent. "Would you like some coffee?" "Yes, I would like that. Thank you." Blanca made him coffee and sat down opposite the man. "What is so important and urgent that you must tell me?" "By the way, what is your name?" "My name is Daniel Domingo. Nice to meet you. I am Blanca." "What do you want?" "Daniel Domingo." "Why do you want our Martina?" "Right now she is not in the mood to receive visitors, frankly." "I am Martina's father," said the guest frankly and directly. Blanca almost dropped the coffee cup from her hands. "Father? And where were you, father, when your daughter was in the orphanage, when she was suffering so much, when she needed a relative? Where?" Wait, don't attack yourself. I found out about her existence 2 months ago." "How is that?" "I'll tell you everything if you're patient, and then you can decide if it's my fault or not." "Okay, lower your voice, please. I dated Martina's mother years ago. I loved her very much, but she chose someone else. I didn't have the money she wanted, so she rejected me. Of course, I was very upset and worried. So I decided to leave the city to get over it as soon as possible. It so happened that I ended up abroad, earned some money, and returned to the country. But not to my hometown, but to the capital. I got a job in one of the clinics. I didn't say that I was a rehabilitation doctor. I have a lot of experience, especially since I have trained in several countries. 2 months ago, my sister, who has stayed in my city, called me and told me that Martina's mother, Monica Castro, was looking for me. I was very surprised. I hadn't spoken to her once since the day she kicked me out, but my sister told me that she had tearfully begged me to contact her. I took some time off and went over. Her face suddenly changed, and she looked out the window, hiding the tears from her eyes, and then continued. She had cancer. She was dying, and she wanted to have time to talk to me about her daughter. I was shocked, to be honest, but when she told me what she had done to her, I was ready to kill her. I asked him why you didn't tell me then and give me the child if you didn't want her. And what was his answer? Blanca asked her question. She felt very sorry for the man. I could see that he was really worried about his daughter. He said that he hadn't even thought about it, but that as he was dying, he decided to repent to me. He told me which orphanage Martina had been taken to and in what year. He said that she had the same last name as Monica. He advised me to find her, to tell her that I was sorry for what I had done, and to ask for her forgiveness for all her broken life. She paused again. Although I honestly don't know how you can forgive something like that. Yes, it is a sad story, Blanca agreed. What are you going to do now? Will you tell Martina the truth? Of course. That's why I'm looking for her. My guilt towards my daughter has disappeared. I didn't know anything about her existence. I think she's an adult and she'll understand. Do you think she'll be happy to see me? I don't know. To be honest, she doesn't want to see anyone right now. You haven't told me what's wrong. Blanca told Daniel everything she knew about what had happened, resentful of the doctor's actions in asking questions. When Blanca finished the story, he sighed heavily and asked, "Can I see her?" Daniel, I think Martina needs to be prepared in some way. At that moment, the doorbell rang in Martina's room. Blanca ran into the room. "Marty, what's wrong?" Blanca screamed in fear. "Blanca, call a doctor. I don't feel well at all." And then Blanca decided to take advantage of the situation. "You know, I broke our agreement. I'm sorry. My brother is visiting. He's a rehabilitation doctor. Can I call him first?" "I don't care. Go ahead." Blanca ran out and called Daniel Domingo, warning him that she was using the familiar form. Why? Martina's father didn't understand. "Look, we'll have all the questions later. Do you want to help your daughter or not?" "Of course you do. Then do what I tell you." Daniel walked into Martina's room. This was not how he had imagined meeting her, but now the situation was such that he didn't have to choose. He walked over to the bed and looked at his only daughter who was dying. His father's heart clenched in pain, but now he had to break down and try to do something to help her. "Tell me, where does it hurt?" "Everywhere." He began to examine Martina. From his reaction, she could clearly identify the problem areas. "How long have you been like this?" "For about 2 weeks." "I see. Can you move your hands?" "Yes, I can." "Please do." Martina moved her hands. "Can you lift them?" "I'll try." Martina lifted her hands, but then helplessly dropped them onto the bed. "Your hands are numb, and you can't hold them." "Yes." "And your legs? Can't you feel them at all?" It was like this right after the accident. Blanca tensed up. Suddenly, Martina was paying attention to her and asking how she knew. Blanca decided to come to her brother's aid. "Martina, I was the one who told Daniel about the accident. I'm sorry." "It's nothing, Blanca. It's a little secret." And turning to her father, she replied, "At first I couldn't feel. After a few operations, I even tried to walk with a walker. Then I had a tumor in my lumbar spine and my legs stopped working every day. Now I can hardly walk anymore." Daniel looked at Blanca, then at his daughter in surprise and asked, "So you could walk after the operations? Did I understand correctly?" "Yes, that's right. Barely, slowly, but you could." "Then they examined your back?" "Yes, of course." Blanca helped her mistress to turn on her side, but Daniel asked her to lie on her stomach. He spent 20 minutes examining his daughter's back, applying pressure somewhere, checking for tenderness, examining the lump in the small of her back, and suddenly gave up. "I can help you. You will walk if you trust me and have patience." Blanca almost fell over in surprise. Martina turned sharply over her shoulder. You see, you can do it yourself without Blanca's help. Listen to me carefully. You need a good chiropractic massage, special exercises, some medicines, and a lot of patience. But I promise you will walk. I'm sorry. What is your name? Daniel Domingo, she replied calmly. And here I thought I was Father Christmas, Martina said with obvious sarcasm. The doctors have made it clear to me that I have no chance of walking. And there is almost no chance of survival either. Why are you making fun of me and giving me false hope? I don't understand. I wasn't making fun of you in any way. I take responsibility for my words. You can read the review about me on the website of the clinic in the capital where I work, said the man from the clinic. Martina looked at the strange man in surprise and decided whether to believe him or not. To be blunt, I'm going to do something now and you'll see what happens. Will you trust me? Go ahead, Martina said, as a challenge. Daniel bent down and pressed something under Martina's knee. She shook her leg and laughed. That tickles. And suddenly, she found herself thinking that it had been a long time since she felt ticklish, even though doctors had done it to her repeatedly. How did you do it? Never mind. Do you believe me now? The father smiled. A little, Martina replied with a smile. She liked this man. There was an incredible warmth in him, even in his hands. Blanca and Daniel left the room. Did you really tell her the truth? Blanca asked. Do you think I could lie to my own daughter? I don't know. I've never seen you before. I understand you. I don't trust you either. Daniel smiled on Sunday. I'll be there tomorrow at 9. Please let Martina know. I need to buy some medicines and some massages. Yes, okay. See you tomorrow. Blanca looked at Daniel gratefully. And thank you for giving her hope. It's very important. Come on. She's my daughter, and I'll do everything in my power to help her get back to normal. It's my duty. He left, and Blanca went back to Martina's room. Do you think she'll be able to help me, Blanca? For some reason, I want to believe her. Marty, I think if you believe this and help Daniel all over the world, he'll help you. Do everything you can. You'll both be successful. I'll do what I can. I'm hopeful. But let's not tell Florencio anything yet, okay? I don't want him to find out before then. Sure, whatever you say. The next day, Daniel Domingo arrived at 9 as promised. After coffee with Martina, they started with a massage, followed by a short workout. Despite Martina's desire to progress quickly, Daniel strictly forbade her to do anything on her own without his consent. Marty, remember that we want results, not speed. You're not ready for serious training, and you won't be anytime soon. It has to be done gradually and correctly. It can't be counterproductive, and we don't want that. No, of course, Martina agreed. So, do exactly as I tell you. And exactly as I tell you. Do you promise not to do it yourself? I promise, Martina said, smiling. I'm not my own enemy. Okay, so I have a question. Can we study with you on the weekend? Just on Saturday. My husband is home on Sunday. It's the only day off, and I don't want to talk to him about you yet. Okay, this is what we'll do. On Sunday you will study with Blanca. I will write her a lesson plan and ask her to supervise you. Do you think you can keep your husband busy for an hour? Yes, of course. He likes to sleep at mealtimes. He is very tired and often sleeps just enough. And on Sunday he sleeps for a whole week. That's great. That's what they did. 6 days a week, massages and workouts with Daniel. And on Sundays, exercise under Blanca's supervision. There were still no results, but it had only been 2 weeks. Although Martina felt that the strength in her arms and legs was slowly emerging and her mood was improving, but her relationship with Florencio was frustrating. He was staying later and later at work, and tonight he had stayed up all night. Martina cried half the night. She understood Florencio, of course, but she also felt sorry for herself. It turned out that his promise to be there for her was unsustainable. Her husband had been enough for a short time and was very hurtful. Maybe he has someone else. A thought popped into Martina's head, and it made her even angrier. The next day, when Daniel arrived, Martina was not in the mood, and therefore had no desire to study. Her father immediately sensed her mood and asked quietly, "Does it hurt?" "My heart," Martina said sadly. The father took her literally and asked in fright, Where exactly does it hurt? Has there been any problem with his heart before?" "No, there hasn't, and that's not why it hurts. I think my husband is having an affair, although I understand that, of course," Martina unexpectedly confessed to herself honestly. The surprise was that Martina had never confided in anyone and had never told anything about her life, let alone her relationship with her husband. "That's ridiculous. What makes you think that? He didn't come home last night." "That had never happened. Marty, that doesn't prove at all that he's having an affair. He's just tired. You have to understand that it's not just you. It's him, and that's normal. Don't judge him and don't get angry. I think things will get better with time." "Are you just trying to reassure me? Or do you really believe that?" "I'm absolutely sure of it." "Do you have a wife?" Martina suddenly asked. "No, I don't know." "Do you have children?" "Yes, a daughter. But I found out recently, and it also torments me, because I'm afraid to admit to her that I'm her father." "Why? Have you ever left her?" "No, I would never abandon my child. It's just that her mother didn't tell me that she was pregnant and broke up with me. I left town to get over her, and then years later, I find out I have an older daughter." "What's wrong?" "So tell her. Do you know where she lives?" "Yes, but I'm scared." "I don't think you should be." "Do you think so?" "I'm sure. I didn't know my father. I don't even know who he was. But if he knocked on my door right now and said, 'Martina, hello, I'm your dad,' I'd jump up to the roof." "I hear you." Daniel got up from his chair and headed for the door. Daniel Domingo walked out the door with his heart pounding wildly in his temples. "I think my blood pressure is 200 over 150, he thought, but he decided firmly, "We have to act. This is the opportunity." So he confidently knocked on the door. "Yes?" He heard his daughter's voice. Daniel opened the door, entered the room and said, "Martina, hello, I'm your dad." Martina was numb looking at him. They looked at each other in silence. Everyone was thinking about their own thoughts at that moment, and no one dared to break the silence. Daniel Domingo was waiting for some reaction from his daughter, and Martina couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Are you my dad?" Tears flowed from her eyes like a river. "How can that be?" Daniel approached the bed. He pulled up a chair and sat next to her to tell his life story again. When he finished, Martina simply said, "Can I give you a hug?" "Of course. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. You can't imagine how glad I am that I found you. I wanted to find my mother, but then I changed my mind. But that I had such a wonderful father, I couldn't even dream of it. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to me and accepting me. I was very worried about how you would react. I don't forgive betrayal, and you didn't betray me. You didn't know about me." They talked for a long time. Each one talked about their lives before their meeting. Martina listened with pride to the challenge of her father's successes and merits. Her father listened with tears in his eyes to the story of his daughter's life, having much to talk about, and no one interrupted them. That day they had missed school for a good reason. The father said he would make up for it. Only the massage could not be rescheduled, so they had to lie down and be patient. Martina, even more submissive, diligently followed her father's recommendations. They now had no doubt that she would recover, as she was being treated by the best doctor who was more interested in her recovery than all the doctors put together. From then on, the sessions were much longer. Father and daughter did not stop talking. They even called each other in the evenings and had long conversations on the phone or by video conference. Martina promised to tell her husband later so that the father could move in with them. It would be more comfortable and easier for everyone. But for now, Martina didn't know how to tell Florencio about this wonderful encounter. When he came home, Martina was already asleep. All these activities were very tiring, and at 10 o'clock at night she usually fell asleep. Her father said that this was very good because sleep was the best medicine for her body. This has been going on for almost a month. Today, Florencio has stayed late at work again. He didn't want to go home at all. He even stopped a couple of times on the way and stared into space, buying time. He knew that his wife had been going to bed early for the past few weeks. Apparently, she wasn't feeling well at all. Her strength is running out since she sleeps so much, he thought, without knowing the real reason. Florencio arrived home around 11. The lights were only on in the living room, which meant that everyone was asleep. Blanca was trying to go to bed right after Martina so she could get up early and do the housework. He entered the living room and heard Martina talking to someone. Very strange, because she's awake. And who could visit us so late? Florencio wondered. She walked over to the door and started listening. I'm so grateful to you, Martina said to someone. I don't know how I would have managed without you. You came into my life just in time. Stop thanking me. I love you, and I'm doing everything I can to make you feel good. A male voice answered the phone. Are they talking on a video link? Florencio guessed. What time are you coming tomorrow? The usual time? Martina asked. No, honey. Tomorrow I have to buy something else for you and then I'll be there maybe at 10 or 11:30. I'll call you or Blanca when I get there. Go to bed now. It's late. Have a good night. Hugs. I love you. Good night, Martina said calmly. And Florencio got a chill at those words. I love you too. See you tomorrow, the man's voice answered. Florencio was furious, so his wife had probably met some man in the hospital and was now having an affair behind his back, so maybe she's faking this illness to avoid sleeping with her husband, and even Blanca knows it. He is the only gullible fool. He walked over to the bar in the living room and poured himself some wine. Florencio drank very little, and only light drinks. So a couple of glasses of wine were more than enough to relax. Thoughts ran non-stop through his head. How could it be that his martyr had deceived him, and in such a state? He poured himself a second glass, drank it in one gulp, and went to his wife's bedroom. Martina was fast asleep. Should I wake her up or not? He thought. Florencio looked at his wife more closely without knowing what was wrong with her. Something was wrong. Something was confusing Florencio about the position of Martina's body. Suddenly he realized Martina's right arm was resting on her head on the pillow. But that can't be. She can't lift her hands. So she lied to me after all. So it's either a deception or a blatant lie. He was angry, very angry. And without being able to think of anything better to do, he decided not to go to work tomorrow. Or rather, to pretend to. And to come home unexpectedly after 10. I wonder what he'll say to me when he catches them red-handed. Florencio gloated. In the morning, as usual, he left for work at 8, warning Blanca that he would be late tonight and she would not have to prepare dinner for her. Blanca nodded and went to the kitchen. And she knows everything too. She must be laughing at me. Florencio scolded himself and became even angrier. Martina woke up at 9. She had a light breakfast with Blanca and waited for Daniel. Blanca was somehow mysterious today. Blanca, are you okay? Martina asked. Yes, everything is okay. Why do you ask? Blanca blushed a little. I don't know. You don't seem to be your usual self today. You must be imagining things, Blanca said at first, and then sat down on a chair and suddenly confessed. Marty, I really like your father. I'm so shy and nervous when I see him. Well, that's great. What's wrong with that? Martina got excited. What if he's seeing someone else? I don't want to interfere in someone else's family. I'll find out, said Martina, winking and smiling. Thank you very much, but don't give me away. Blanca got nervous. What's wrong? It's a woman's solidarity. Martina smiled again. She was in a good mood. The results of her lessons with her father were visible. Martina could already stand on one foot and even take a few steps with the help of a walker. Yes, running was still a long way off, and it was unlikely to be possible, but at least something. And her hands had almost stopped going numb. Daniel Domingo called. Marty, hello, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Hello, we're waiting for you, Martina said. She looked at Blanca, who had no face, and smiled. You and who? The father was surprised. Well, me and my limbs, Martina squirmed. Ah, good. The father entered the living room, greeted Blanca, and after kissing Martina, took her to the room to study. Blanca was preparing dinner and didn't even hear Florencio arrive. Blanca, is Martina in her room? She heard her master's voice and, surprised, dropped a plate on the floor. It broke into pieces. Florencio, why are you here? Blanca asked the first thing that came to mind. Couldn't she come home during the day? Florencio asked. Are you hiding something from me? No, I was just asking. Blanca was neither alive nor dead. She didn't know what to do, how to warn her landlady. She saw that Florencio was very angry and that he didn't know who or what was there. And Daniel Domingo had just given Martina a massage, and she didn't know what her jealous husband was going to see. What a nightmare. We have to warn them somehow, Blanca thought. Do you want a coffee? Are you kidding me? Do you think I came to the house to have you make me coffee? I said, where is my wife? Is she in her room? Or has she already gone to her appointment? What are you talking about? What appointment? You've misunderstood something, Blanca said, practically from behind Florencio. She followed him to help in case of trouble, but Florencio didn't hear anything else. Anger and even rage enveloped him. He was used to defending his own, and that included his Martina since childhood. He yanked open the door handle and saw a scene that made him feel quite bad. Florencio grabbed his opponent by the shoulder, pulled him roughly towards him, and punched him in the face. It's clear that Daniel wasn't prepared for that, and he fell smack onto the bed. Florencio wanted to pick him up and hit him again, but Martina jumped onto the bed and covered herself with the blankets and screamed. Don't touch him! He's my father! Florencio felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on his head. Who is it? It's my father, Martina repeated. What are you doing? How? The father. Which father? Where does he come from? Question after question, Florencio. If you calm down, I will explain everything to you. Only now Florencio realized that Martina herself was standing on the floor. Are you walking? Just a little. If you don't hurt my father, I will walk more. I don't understand anything, Florencio said weakly, realizing that he had done something stupid. Dad, Blanca, have a coffee. We need to talk, Martina said. She leaned towards her father. Are you okay? Good. My teeth seem to be in place. Daniel Domingo smiled. Didn't you tell me that your spouse was so jealous? I'm sorry. I didn't know that could happen. Daniel and Blanca left the room. Martina sat on the edge of the bed and motioned for her husband to sit next to her. She told him the story of how she had known his father since he was first in the house, that he was a doctor, and that he was helping Martina recover. Why didn't you tell me from the beginning? Florencio asked her. I wanted to surprise you for one thing. Secondly, I didn't know exactly what kind of result Dad and I were going to get, so I didn't want to get your hopes up. And if I had hit him harder, have you thought about it? How were you going to see that you were imagining things? And how did you find out? Last night, when I came in, I heard you confess your love to someone. Florencio lowered his head. What was I supposed to think? And you immediately thought I had a lover in my condition? Are you serious? You and I once agreed not to lie to each other and not to hide anything. He thought for a second. Well, of course I was wrong to hide the news from you too, but I couldn't imagine you thinking I was cheating on you. Well, it doesn't matter what I thought as long as I was wrong. Please forgive me, Florencio said guiltily. I'm an idiot, but I have an excuse. I'm an idiot in love. Will you forgive me? Really? Of course, but I also have to apologize to my father. Naturally, what's your father's name? Daniel Domingo. Well, let's apologize. Well, come on, it's a big word, but come on. Martina smiled. She climbed onto the chair and Florencio led his wife into the living room. Daniel and Blanca were sitting on the sofa drinking coffee. Seeing her hosts, Blanca immediately stood up. Sit down, it's okay, said Florencio and turned to his father-in-law, Daniel Domingo. Forgive me, for the love of God, I didn't want us to meet like this. But I didn't know anything about you and I couldn't imagine that you could be Martina's father. Come on, it's okay, she'll get better before the wedding, smiled his father-in-law. Before the wedding? Martina wondered. Whose wedding? Mine, of course. I hope you don't get divorced because of me, smiled Daniel. By the way, I've never been married. How interesting, smiled Martina enigmatically. But you will visit us, I hope. Of course, if you promise not to fight, said the father, and everyone laughed. Will they invite me? Asked Blanca, with sadness in her low voice. Will they invite me? Blanca asked sadly, and in a low voice. Yes, I'll invite you too. Daniel smiled and changed the subject. Martina, we have to continue with the massage. We are not finished with you today yet. Yes, Dad, of course. Yes, Dad, of course. I will say goodbye to Florencio and go back to the room while you finish your coffee. Florencio went to work, and Martina and her father went back to class. After all the treatments, Daniel Domingo left. In the evening, Martina decided to talk to her husband so that her father could stay at her house. She arrived at the kitchen that smelled delicious. Blanca, what are you cooking? What is so magical? I am drooling. But Blanca turned her back to her hostess, and without turning around, she answered, her favorite meat is in the oven. Her favorite meat is baked. Martina heard Blanca's voice tremble. Blanca, turn to me, please, she asked. I'm sorry, I can't. Don't make me go through the kitchen to get to you. Blanca turned around and Martina saw that she was crying. What is it? What happened? Don't you understand? Your father is getting married, and for a moment I thought he liked me too. Well, I think your tears are premature, so don't get upset before you know. When will I find out? When will he bring me an invitation? Blanca, it's going to be okay. Somehow, I think he was just joking about the wedding. Martina tried to reassure Blanca. I don't think so. Well, feed me, or I'll soon start chewing the table. Martina changed the conversation. She persuaded Blanca to join her for lunch. Look, it's such a nice day. Let's have a glass of wine, Martina suggested. I don't drink at work. Blanca refused. Blanca, well, what a job. You live with us, you help us. You don't even have days off. Sometimes you can relax. We'll have a drink. I don't want too many either. Very well, a little at a time. She poured the wine and sat down next to Martina. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Who could it be? Blanca asked herself. Please look, I'm not waiting for anyone. Blanca went to open the door. On the threshold stood Daniel Domingo with a beautiful bouquet of roses. Dear Blanca, I beg you to be my wife. He handed her the flowers and a box with a ring. Blanca took the box and asked, Is this for me? Tears ran down her cheeks. The ring was very pretty. Blanca took it out of the box and put it on her finger. Does that mean you agree? Of course you do. I have a favor to ask you, may I? Daniel asked hesitantly. Of course. Can we have the wedding when Martina can walk? It's literally a couple of months away. Oh, no problem. Of course we'll wait. Blanca agreed immediately. Hey, bride and groom, are you going to be making nice for 2 more hours? Or who's going to serve the wine? So you did it on purpose, right? Blanca said to Martina. You knew everything. Of course it was my father. Martina smiled. You two celebrating while I rest for a while in my room. 2 months later, Martina was already walking alone around the house. Not quickly, but without a walker. Only with a cane. Daniel Domingo moved into his daughter's house and now spends more time with his future wife. One night, the men were sitting in the gazebo talking. At that moment, Florencio asked him a question. How come the doctors had given up and Daniel had brought his wife back to life? You see, Florencio, the doctors thought that Martina had a tumor in her spine, and it wasn't a tumor, it was a herniated disc. If it's not advanced, it can be treated with chiropractic. If it is, it can be operated on. It's a common medical error. Nobody has many musculoskeletal problems that they have concluded that happens. What would we do without you? Said Florencio. If it hadn't been for you, okay, then stop thanking me. I did what I had to do. It's my daughter, for whom I am very guilty, although she is not guilty. The main thing is that it worked together with her. I thought it would take me longer, but Martina did it well, much faster. Florencio, I have a question for you. I understand that this needs to be discussed with our women, but I wanted to talk to you first. What is it? No, it's nothing. I just wanted to offer to build a bigger house. I'll come to my flat in the capital. That's more than enough to spread out. Anyway, Martina can't do without Blanca's help, and I'll be here as support, and there's not much room for us in this house. Never mind, but let's ask the women. The men came back to the house. Blanca and Martina were sitting on the sofa in the living room and were arguing about something emotional. It turned out that they were talking about an upcoming event, a wedding. Blanca didn't want anything big, and Martina convinced her to go for it. Blanca, I really want you to have a fancy event. My father has me on his feet, and you are my indispensable helper. Is there anything I can do for you in return? Hey, said Florencio indignantly. Why only you? I have my share. Blanca, Daniel intervened. I think it's better to give in. Martina won't back down anyway. Okay, Blanca nodded. You've already said that. And we also want to discuss something with you, the father began. And we can't do it without you. Let's solve our problem now, Martina said cheerfully. She had changed a lot lately. Not only was she lively, but she was shining from the inside out. Your father suggested building a bigger house for all of us, a room for each of them, a couple of bedrooms for guests, a kitchen, a living room, their office. What do you say? Martina looked at her husband and her father with feigned resentment. Is something wrong? Florencio tensed. He thought that his wife did not like the idea. Not like this, Martina answered. When do you want to start building? Tomorrow, Florencio answered. If there are no inconveniences, go ahead and build, and in 8 months, you will build again, Martina said calmly, and winked at Blanca, who already knew everything. I don't understand. Why rebuild? Florencio was really surprised. Well, because there is no nursery among the inhabitants you have listed. Martina smiled. Florencio looked incomprehensibly at his wife and father-in-law and shrugged his shoulders. Do you understand anything, Daniel? I think so. In 8 months, I will be a grandfather, and you will be a father. The father-in-law shouted happily. Florencio had tears in his eyes. Marty, is it true? Is it really true? Can't there be a mistake? Yes, I went to the doctor yesterday. Martina smiled. Florencio ran over and hugged his wife. This is great news. It's very good. Oh, wait. Are you allowed to give birth alone? Florencio freaked out. I think she needs a C-section, but there's no problem. Daniel Domingo intervened. Florencio was in a state of shock and couldn't believe what was happening. Until 6 months ago, it had seemed to him that the happy family life was over and that nothing good would come of it. But with the arrival of his father-in-law, everything had changed drastically, so abruptly that he didn't have time to absorb the information. A week later, Daniel and Blanca got married. The wedding was held in the same restaurant as Florencio and Martina. They didn't invite many guests. they only celebrated in a small circle. Florencio and Martina took care of the expenses of the event and gave the newlyweds a wedding trip as a gift. Blanca, who had never been anywhere in her life, almost fell off her chair. "What? It must be very expensive. You've already organized and paid for everything yourself. I'm really embarrassed. You have a grandson to take care of." Florencio laughed. While the newlyweds were away, Martina and Florencio designed a plan for their new big house. But they didn't start construction without Daniel and Blanca's approval. Upon their return, the project was approved and put into operation. The house was finished just in time for the birth of the baby. But they decided to move to the new house when the event occurred. Martina gave birth to a daughter on time. They named her Esperanza because it was hope that helped them persevere through everything that had happened to them. If you enjoyed the story, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel.